Good evening. This is On the Record on CNN Philippines. I'm Pia Hontiveros. Charter change is coming, but how will this be done? The House draws fast in calling for a constituent assembly, but senators are putting the brakes on it. Both chambers don't see eye to eye on how to vote on the proposed amendments. The president has set a deadline for charter change, and the ball is now in Congress. What will be the fate of the Constitution? We begin with the difference between the two chambers of Congress and how they will vote on changes in the Constitution. In a speech before thousands of local officials in Iloilo who joined the ruling party, the PDP Laban, House Speaker Pantaleon Alvarez urges Ilonggos to unite and throw their support behind President Duterte's advocacy for a shift to a federal form of government. Alvarez adds he is set to meet with Senate President Nene Pimentel. Speaking to CNN Philippines earlier, Alvarez says part of his agenda is to convince Pimentel to agree to a joint session in voting. He also weighed in on a warning that any senator who will attend the House session will be expelled.
Igagalang namin yun, yung kanilang minumungkahi. But hindi ko makita kung anong ground ng expulsion because this is a constitutional process.
Okay. Well, Speaker, can you also tell us, kanina po sa Iloilo, sa inyong speech, doon sa oath-taking ng mga bagong miyembro ng PDP Laban, the President's political party, you were quoted as saying, ayaw nila ng palitan ang sistema, ang gusto nila kontrolin ang mga probinsya, ang gusto ng mga leaders sa Manila, sila ang magsasabi kung uunlad tayo o hindi. You were trying to make a case for federalism. Is that correct, sir?
Yes, that is correct because that is the essence of a unitary form of government. Yung centralized, yung control. Yun po ang gusto nating baguhin sa ating bansa na itong mga probinsya, itong mga riyon ay mabigyan natin ng kalayaan para umahon naman yung buhay.
Alvarez adds they have started the process of forming the Constituent Assembly and will be conducting public hearings on charter change. Joining me now in this discussion, House Deputy Speaker Fredenil Castro, former Senate President Nene Pimentel, and a member of the 1986 Constitutional Commission, Ed Garcia. Good evening, Senator Pimentel, Congressman Castro.
Good evening.
And Professor Garcia. Hello. Thank you very much for being here. Well, let's begin with this. Let's break things down. If the Constitution is amended, the first question is, how is it going to be done? Constituent Assembly or Constitutional Convention? Is it tama ba yung interpretation ng lahat na mukhang Constituent Assembly na nga at hindi Constitutional Convention? Congressman Castro, can you answer that first?
I think there is nothing definite on whether it will be Constitutional Convention or Constituent Assembly. Because for us to amend the Constitution on the basis of a Constituent Assembly, it is necessary that Congress, the Senate should agree and join the House of Representatives as a Constituent Assembly to amend the Constitution.
In a joint session?
In a joint session.
Okay. So in other words, hindi po pwede yung ini-envision ngayon na hiwalay ang Constituent Assembly ng House at hiwalay ang Constituent Assembly ng Senate because that is what some lawmakers are saying.
Well, the ideal idea there is a joint session, but the bottleneck comes in insofar as the voting is concerned, whether the Senate will vote separately and the House of Representatives will vote separately.
Okay, so your position, Congressman Castro, you are Deputy Speaker, one of the Deputy Speakers, your position is that it should be a joint session, but the two houses of Congress can vote separately?
Yes.
Okay, yes. Because right now what's happening is that Speaker Alvarez, the rest of the leadership of the House is saying that it will be a Constituent Assembly, kumbaga solo flight na lang yung House. Ganun po ba? Parang bahala na ang Senado kung ayaw nilang...
Well, as may be allowed by the Constitution. Because if that's the way Speaker Alvarez interprets the Constitution, that if the Senate rejects or even abandons, for example, or boycotts the Constituent Assembly, then the House of Representatives, on the basis of the interpretation of Speaker Alvarez, the House of Representatives can proceed.
Former Senate President Nene Pimentel, sir, can you tell us, pwede po ba yon dalawang magkahiwalay na constituent assembly, one of the House, one of the Senate?
Well, the ideal really is to have one session where both houses are jointly discussing the issues. And after that, they should vote separately for the reason you have already heard that the 24 senators, if they vote with the 250 plus members in the House, would be overwhelmed by a tsunami of votes from the House. But in any event, I'd like to emphasize this point. I am happy that you have a deputy speaker like this renegade Fredenil.
Renegade?
An old friend of mine, actually, from way back. So I know him from, well, the hair used to be white, black, now it's white. But from the tip of the hair of on his head to his toes, I know what he's standing for. And what he's saying is that we should follow the requirements.
Yeah. Well, what happens if the House goes on, well, mag-solo flight, you know?
There will.
Because there are some senators who are saying, no, we're not going to attend that. At the same time, Ping Lacson threatening to move for the expulsion of those senators who will join the Constituent Assembly of the House. Because the interpretation for the longest time of that constitutional provision is that the Constituent Assembly is both houses of Congress.
So what's going to happen? There will be a lot of cases. I'm for sure that will be brought to the Supreme Court to challenge the move.
Okay. Ed Garcia, member of the 1986 Constitutional Commission. Ano po ba yung interpretation ng commission at ninyo po? Ano ba dapat?
I have brought with me the 1987 Constitution.
This is one of the 100 original
One
copies.
of the few originals that we have of the Constitution. And you know, I have always believed that text without context is pretext. And that's why you have to actually see the entire Constitution, in its entirety. So Article 17, mentions three manners or three ways in which the Constitution can either be revised or amended. And in one of them, it says Congress, by a 3/4 majority. And then in Article 6, in the very first section of Article 6, it defines what Congress is. And as reminded to us yesterday by Dolph Ascuna and June Davide, who were members, who were the chair and vice chair of the article on the legislature, Congress is both the House of Representatives and the Senate. In other words, he said, in fact, to say congressman is a misnomer because what we have are representatives and senators. So therefore, the idea is that they have to come together, and vote separately, because that was the original intent of the Constitution. If you go back into the origins, was that we were going to have a bicameral system. But on the last day of the voting or the drafting of that article on the legislature, by one vote, the bicameral won over the unicameral, and so the Section 17...
Whose one vote was that, by the way?
Feli Aquino.
Okay.
Feli Aquino voted for the bicameral system. And so therefore, it became bicameral. And Article 17, which was headed by Sen Suarez, was not able or did not put
or edit that...
Exactly.
Or explain...
edit that part which says Congress. But it is, as I said, you have to take it as a whole. And it says there that Congress is both the House of Representatives and the Senate. And, let me be very blunt, and very honest with you. Because yesterday, we met with 14 senators in the public hearings, and my mentor and my idol, Nene Pimentel, was a very vocal proponent of many things in that meeting. And, Senator Ralph Recto, after listening to so many of the arguments and discussions, actually said this. I believe that the CONAS, as far as the Senate is concerned, is dead in the water. He said it cannot fly. And in fact, the Chief Justice Puno and Davide, in their interpellation by Senator Frank Drilon, said very clearly because there are institutions that are independent, they can vote. And if they don't participate in the process, he says it cannot be justiciable in the Supreme Court because this is a political act. And it will be therefore deemed a political question. That was the point of the two former Chief Justices, Pia.
Well, you know, Senator Drilon, Senator Lacson talking about that possibility that there may be senators who could join the House Constituent Assembly. So that's weird. We have to say House Constituent Assembly. And yun na nga, no, ang threat ni Ping Lacson di pa-expel ko yan kung yan ang gagawin nila. If there is one senator, even just one senator in the Constituent Assembly of the House of Representatives, does that mean that this is the Constituent Assembly as envisioned by the Constitution?
No, because it's the House of Representatives and the Senate. That's the definition of Congress. Yeah. And I'm sure, Nene Pimentel would agree with that.
Well, and Congress, I mean, that's why we have the upper house and lower house of Congress. Upper house referring to the Senate, the lower house referring to the House of Representatives. But anyway, this discussion will continue. We'll hear from some senators on their thoughts about a joint voting on charter change. Stay with us here on The Record. Here on The Record here on CNN Philippines, senators are insisting they will not vote jointly with the House of Representatives on charter change. Senator Ping Lacson confirmed their caucus last Tuesday, where he said he will move to expel any senator that goes to the lower house. There are those who say presence of even one senator at the House could be interpreted as a joint session to spur charter change. Minority Leader Franklin Drilon adds no senator objected.
So sabi ko, para lang medyo matibay yung usapan natin, baka pwede magkasundo-sundo tayo na i-expel natin yung whoever, kung sino yung member or members na sasama sa ganong arrangement without the benefit of a resolution adopted by the body. And nobody objected, so I assume na paig naman sila lahat.
What is significant is that that is how serious the senators feel about our power to vote separately.
A senator does not.
Still with us, House Deputy Speaker Fredenil, Castro, former Senate President Nene Pimentel, and Constitutional Commission member Ed Garcia. So we were talking about at least the three of you agreeing that there can be there has to be a constituent assembly with both houses of Congress represented, but they can vote separately. Okay, but so we are going down the road of constituent assembly. So, kumbaga lahat ng tao parang okay lang sa kanila that we do amend the charter. Or is the discussion now, we're just talking about parang this is just a choice between what mode we use, and everybody is okay with amending the Constitution?
As a matter of fact, let me just have this input. When I've been going around, as I go around the nation talking about the proposal to adopt the federal system, the main concern of the people is that if you change the Constitution, what good will come to me?
Exactly.
Right. Gaganda ba ang buhay?
Gaganda ba ang buhay ko, etc. So we take pains to point out that as far as the proposal to adopt the federal system is concerned, right now, it is designed to dismantle the highly concentrated, power-centered government that we have in Metro Manila. So that by having 12 federal states, every federal state would now have the power to determine the kind of investments that will go to their place, the incentives that they will give to the investors, and therefore making it more possible for people to have work. Employment is made possible under the setup.
Okay, and in a federalism setup, is it correct, as envisioned, na in very simple language, yung pera hindi na pupunta sa Manila, yung pera ay mananatili doon sa lugar na yon?
As a matter of fact, we have to make a comparison. The present setup is that under the local government code, we are dividing the income generated by only the BIR Income ng BIR divided into two, 60% to the national government, 40% to the local government. Under the proposed federal system, gusto kong baliktarin yun. Instead of 60-40, it should be 80-20. 80% para sa mga federal states, 20% na lang para sa national. Bakit? Sapagkat kukunti na lang ang kapangyarihan maiwan sa national government.
Okay. Well, so how do congressmen, if we go by what Adolf Ascuna is saying, there's no such thing as congressman, how do the representatives, the members of the House of Representatives, ano ba yung sentiment, no, when it comes to federalism? Is everybody for it? Ganun pa ba yun?
Well, insofar as federalism is concerned, I think the common sentiment of congressmen is that it's worth shifting to federalism on the basis of what has been explained so far as to the advantage of federalism in our country. Congressmen also believe that there should be a dismantling of the heavy concentration of power here in Manila. And they also believe that local governments, including the regional states, for example, that will be converted into regional states, must have to determine its own destiny and use its own income or the resources for their own benefits.
How do you respond to well, some thoughts, no, na kapag federalism daw, so syempre yung power wala na dun sa Manila, no? Hindi na nakakoncentrate sa Manila, nandun na nga sa mga federal states, regions, provinces, ano. Pero ang hahawak ng poder na yon dun sa mga federal states, regions, provinces, etc., are the families that have been in power for the longest time. And these are the same families that have been sending representatives, halimbawa, sa House of Representatives, that have members, their members holding local positions, mayor, governor, councilor, etc.
Well, I think it's only a matter of perception, Pia. That is the perception of some. But in reality, safeguards could also be designed in order to prevent all of this perception or apprehension.
Safeguards could be designed.
Like, for example, an anti-political dynasty law may be passed.
Which is in the 1987 Constitution anyway.
But, you know, it is not self-executing provision. You need a law in order to, implement
the law that was needed to implement the
was not passed by Congress.
By Congress,
yes.
The same Congress.
Yes, but
House of Representatives.
if, for example, we amend the Constitution and a provision on anti-political dynasty that is self-executing is embodied already in the Constitution. Therefore, there is nothing more left except to implement that.
Yeah, we have 45 seconds to the break.
Well, essentially, what I want to say is that we are putting the cart before the horse. We have to prepare. Like, take the case of political dynasties. You know, 80% of the members of Congress belong to political dynasties. How can you expect them, if they become con-ass, to actually abolish
to put that and to put that
exactly.
self-executing?
The question of Nene Pimentel is very important. Who benefits? I do not think it's the people who will benefit if there is a con-ass. It will be those who craft that bill or craft the Constitution, many of whom are the beneficiaries because they will be in power. There will be no election. Or they will still continue in power because 90 of the congressmen right now are ending their terms.
Yeah. Excuse me, I have to respond to that. There is no question that the people in general want the Constitution to be revised according to a constitutional convention. Meaning to say election of the delegates throughout the nation. But of course, I support that. But even the President, incidentally, when he started to speak about adoption of the federal system, he was talking about a constitutional convention. But later on, I think some of his advisors were able to change his mind. Now, it will be cheaper if you do it by constituent assembly. Now, you know, the issue of revising the Constitution through a constituent assembly is not bad by itself. In other words, kung pabayaan ng tao na ang Kongreso lang ang gagawa ng mga pagbabago, siyempre, kung ano lang papasok sa isip ng mga congressmen and
Pero kung
women,
ang tao ay
yun ang masusunod. But the people must insist that they should participate in the process of changing the Constitution.
Okay, and on that note, sir, we need to take a break.
conducted.
When we return, we will check what netizens are saying about the proposed charter change. Keep it here on CNN Philippines. Welcome back to On the Record. The discussion is already going on even before we go back on air. So, sino mauna?
Yeah.
Age before beauty?
All right, age.
Seniority.
Age muna. Seniority
Alright.
muna, Ed Garcia.
You see,
You have that statement of...
the framers of the 1987 Constitution got together.
Okay,
So,
ilan na lang po
ito
yung buhay?
Well, maybe among us, only 13
13 out of
are out of 48.
48, okay.
And 9 of us, these are the names,
Right.
are the signatories to the statement
Yeah.
of the framers of the Constitution, which is entitled in one sentence. The Constitution, the 1987 Constitution, is not the problem. It is part of the solution. And therefore, what we say is that, the Constitution, yes, but not to change it, not now. Because there are more pressing problems like poverty and inequality, the political dynasties and governance, corruption and criminality. In other words, let's focus, with real concentration on the basic problems of the land. Secondly, and this is what we say, federalism, can actually be the aims of federalism. If federalism is the answer, what is the question? And the question precisely is, how do we improve the lives of those, in the regions which are far-flung? And, we have here the author of the Local Government Code. And the Local Government Code, precisely provides a lot of resources and capacities to many of the local governments in our country. And in Section 521, it actually says this, every 5 years, there is a mandatory review. Congress shall undertake a mandatory review of the Local Government Code. And therefore, my question, the question I asked yesterday before the senators is, have you done the mandatory 5-year review that Nene Pimentel, who is one of the authors, together with the others, decided? And does the Congress also? House of Representatives?
So you're saying that instead of federalism, we can just implement...
Well, first implement
local government.
Article 10 of the Constitution on the local government. There are at least 3 sections there.
You're saying, Professor Garcia, na you don't want the 1987 Constitution amended at all.
No, I'm not saying that.
So
I'm saying
what
now,
would you agree?
Now is not the time.
Yeah. But that is the same argument of those who have been against a charter change ever since panahon ni Cory, panahon ni FVR. Every time charter change comes up as a heated target of debate, yun palagi sinasabi, not now, saka na, not now.
No, because you have to prepare the ground, and this is a good base. I think it is an opportune time to precisely overhaul, to improve and amend the local government code so that you prepare for the time when it can be, when the Constitution can be revised properly. Like the political dynasties law. That's why I'm saying cart before the horse. We have to dismantle the political dynasties first. Otherwise, what you will have is a proliferation of political dynasties all over the place. Secondly,
even if we have a self-executive. Anyway, wait.
No, that's why we need to have that.
Okay.
We need to have that. And then secondly, we only have three regions in the country right now who has the capacity and the capability to be self-governing in terms of revenues and capacities. That's NCR, Central Luzon, and Calabarzon.
Okay, we need
so
to...
Therefore, it's uneven.
Yeah, we need to get Congressman Castro. You wanted to say something, sir?
Well, insofar as this political dynasty is concerned, I would like to point out that with the presence of an anti-political dynasty provision in the Constitution that is self-executing, meaning there is no need for a law in order to implement that, automatically, political dynasty is dismantled.
Okay, so ang ipagbabawal ay
Well,
Hindi na
up to
pwede
the fourth degree by affinity and consanguinity.
Kayo po, meron po ba kayong kamag-anak in
Of
office
course,
right
I
now?
have.
You have. Okay.
As a matter of fact, records will show in the House of Representatives that it was I who fought nail in tooth for the approval of the anti-political dynasty law in the 16th Congress. Because I was then the chairman of the House Committee on Suffrage and Electoral Reforms.
Okay, okay. So, all right.
Did it pass? Did it pass? Did that law pass?
It did not. It did not pass.
Okay. So, wait. So now, parang ang mangyayari is we're going, because earlier I was speaking to Speaker Alvarez and he said, tuloy-tuloy lang sa House. They will call for a constituent assembly and then, well, like Senator Pimentel was saying, ang mangyayari nun, case upon case ang mangyayari na lang. So, anong mangyayari sa atin? What?
There will be a stalemate. Therefore,
A what?
stalemate. Meaning to say that there is no amendment of the Constitution. We will have to await the decision of the Supreme Court on
What are you
whether
going to do, Congressman Castro, when the time comes on the floor of the House of Representatives in the Batasang Pambansa, when somebody comes up and says, okay, we're going to convene ourselves as a constituent assembly, tayo ang House of Representatives, what are you going to do?
Well, as part of the House of Representatives, I will have to participate. I don't want to be accused by my constituents that I have abandoned
Okay.
my mandate from the people. As a matter of fact, it's very important for me to participate, considering that amendment of the Constitution is a constitutional duty.
Yeah. All right.
That's
we
a
need to wrap-
violation of the Constitution. Precisely because
Sir, we're wrapping up na po. So this is
it's a
these are your
violation
final
of the
words.
Constitution.
Yeah. Okay.
Precisely because Congress is not the House of Representatives. It's the House of Representatives and the Senate.
Okay. Final words, Congressman Castro?
It's not a violation of the Constitution, just a reaction. Because in the first place, there is no yet judicial determination on whether if the House of Representatives proceeds as a constituent assembly, it is a violation of the Constitution.
Okay, so pabayaan na muna yung House na mag-convene as a constituent assembly tapos kasuhan na.
And I will
tapos doon na lang
participate
tayo mag-
because I understand
Suprema.
that it is my constitutional duty
Okay.
to perform that under the Constitution.
Okay, 30 seconds. Senator Nene Pimentel, final words. Final words po, 30 seconds.
Well, very important for the people to understand that changing the Constitution will affect their own lives.
That's right. Yeah.
And therefore, participation of the people in the matter of how, what, and when the changes should take effect should be accorded to the people through the public hearings that the Senate and the House are expected to conduct.
Thank you very much to our guest tonight, Ed Garcia, member of the 1986 Constitutional Commission. Thank you, sir. Congressman Fred Castro, Deputy Speaker, House of Representatives, and Senator Nene Pimentel, former Senate President. Thank you very much for being here. That's it for tonight. Thank you for your time. I'm Pia Hontiveros. This is On the Record.